If you're over 70 and worried about your brain, listen carefully. Your mind is not destined to decline. The truth is, your brain has incredible plasticity. It can rewire, regenerate, and stay sharp if you know how to train it. Every habit you form, every thought you think, every action you take, literally sculpts your brain. That means you have power over your mental age. Start by challenging your brain daily. Learn something new, a language, a musical instrument, even a complex puzzle. Novelty stimulates neural growth, strengthens connections, and keeps your mind agile. Physical movement is equally critical. Exercise doesn't just build muscle, it floods your brain with oxygen and growth factors that protect neurons and improve memory. But here's the kicker. What you avoid is just as important as what you do. Stop passive habits that numb your mind. Endless TV, mindless scrolling, and comfort routines that don't challenge you. These habits actually accelerate brain aging. Instead, replace them with deliberate, engaging activities that stimulate curiosity and creativity. Social connection is your secret weapon. Conversations, debates, and laughter ignite neural networks in ways solitary activities can't, and never underestimate the power of reflection. Journaling, meditation, and gratitude literally strengthen the brain's prefrontal cortex, the seat of executive function, decision-making, and self-control. Your brain doesn't have a fixed expiration date. You can train it, rewire it, and keep it sharp, even well into your 70s and beyond. It's not magic, it's neuroscience in action. But it requires discipline, novelty, and conscious effort. Stop waiting for decline. Start sculpting your mind today, and your brain will reward you with clarity, memory, and the joy of mental freedom. Remember, age is not a limit. It's an opportunity to prove how resilient and brilliant your brain can be. Start now. Your 70-plus brain can be sharper, faster, and more alive than you ever imagined. Margaret had always considered herself an active person, but by the time she reached 71, she found herself slipping into routines that were comfortable but unchallenging. Her mornings were predictable: a cup of tea, the daily crossword, a short walk around the neighborhood, and then hours of television. It was easy, safe, and familiar. But one evening, her niece, an energetic entrepreneur in her 40s, suggested something that made Margaret uncomfortable. "Why don't you join me in a problem-solving workshop tomorrow? It'll stretch your mind in ways you won't believe." Margaret hesitated. She felt a twinge of fear. Fear of failure, fear of embarrassment, fear of stepping outside her comfort zone. But there was also curiosity. Something inside her whispered that maybe her brain could still surprise her. The next morning, Margaret walked into the workshop, heart racing, unsure of what to expect. The exercises were complex puzzles and challenges that required creative thinking, strategy, and collaboration. At first, she struggled. She felt slow, clumsy, and unsure. But slowly, something remarkable happened. With each challenge she tackled, she felt her confidence grow. Her mind, which she thought had settled into a predictable rhythm, was firing in new ways. Connections she hadn't used in decades were suddenly active again. Her brain was responding to challenge, proving that mental agility doesn't fade because of age. It only fades if we stop using it. This is the essence of staying sharp, challenging the mind. It's not about avoiding effort or discomfort. It's about deliberately pushing your brain beyond its usual patterns. Every time Margaret solved a puzzle, her neural networks strengthened. Each moment of struggle built resilience, flexibility, and creativity. She realized that habits of ease, passive routines like endless television or scrolling through social media, were silently accelerating cognitive decline. But when she chose challenge over comfort, her brain began to thrive. Margaret's story also shows that challenge is deeply personal. It doesn't have to be a workshop. It could be learning a new instrument, writing a short story, tackling advanced math problems, or engaging in debates that force you to think critically. The key is discomfort. Deliberately stepping into situations where your brain has to work harder than it's used to. Over time, these challenges accumulate, creating a kind of mental muscle memory that keeps your mind resilient, flexible, and agile, even in your 70s or 80s. By the end of the workshop, Margaret felt exhilarated, not exhausted. She had discovered that her mind was not fixed, not slowing irreversibly with age. It was alive, responsive, and ready for growth. She only had to choose challenge over complacency. That evening, she returned home and started designing her own daily mental challenges, knowing that the secret to staying sharp wasn't in avoiding difficulty, but in embracing it. The lesson is clear. Challenge, don't complain. Stop letting comfort dictate your brain's limits. Each deliberate, difficult effort you make is a signal to your neurons to grow, adapt, and thrive. Age is no barrier, only inaction is. George had always considered himself a sedentary man. At 74, his daily routine revolved around reading the newspaper, sipping coffee, and short strolls to the mailbox. He believed that, since he wasn't experiencing major memory problems, his brain was doing fine. But over time, he noticed subtle changes. Names slipped from his mind, he forgot where he put his glasses, and sometimes words escaped him mid-conversation. He felt frustrated and a little fearful, wondering if his mind was slowly betraying him. One morning, his doctor gave him a simple piece of advice that struck a chord. George, your brain is like a muscle. If you don't move it, it weakens, and that includes movement of your body. At first, George was skeptical. Exercise at his age? He imagined running marathons or lifting heavy weights, but his doctor laughed. It doesn't have to be extreme, even moderate. Consistent movement floods your brain with oxygen and growth factors that protect neurons, improve memory, and enhance focus. Motivated by this revelation, George decided to commit to a daily routine. Nothing complicated, just brisk walking, light stretching, and occasional strength exercises. The first week was humbling. His muscles ached, his joints protested, and he felt slower than ever. But something remarkable began to happen. After each walk, he noticed his mind felt clearer, sharper, and more alert. Ideas he had struggled to organize began to flow. Tasks that once seemed tedious now felt manageable. The connection between moving his body and energizing his brain was undeniable. George realized that exercise wasn't just about staying physically strong, it was literally fueling his mind, creating an environment where neurons could thrive and cognitive decline could be slowed. As weeks turned into months, George challenged himself further. A few minutes of yoga in the morning, short bursts of cardio, and even a gentle dance class with his wife. Each movement brought joy and a sense of vitality. He laughed more easily, remembered details with surprising clarity, and even found that his memory of recent conversations improved. His brain, once sluggish and foggy, felt alive. He discovered that growth factors released during exercise were like magic signals telling his neurons to strengthen connections, regenerate where possible, and form new pathways. George's story shows that staying mentally sharp after 70 is deeply tied to physical activity. The brain does not function in isolation. Circulation, oxygenation, and hormonal balance, all influenced by movement, play crucial roles in preserving memory, attention, and cognitive flexibility. It isn't about extremes or competition. It's about consistent, deliberate motion that challenges the body while nurturing the mind. By embracing movement, George not only improved his physical health, but also reclaimed his mental vitality. He proved to himself that age is not a limitation and that the brain's capacity for growth and resilience remains with us, even at 70 and beyond. Every step he took was a step toward clarity, focus, and lifelong mental sharpness. Eleanor had always been independent. At 75, she prided herself on handling everything on her own, paying bills, managing her home, and even socializing occasionally with a few friends. But over time, she noticed that her memory was slipping. She struggled to recall names at gatherings, forgot appointments, and sometimes felt mentally sluggish. One afternoon, her granddaughter invited her to a small community book club. Eleanor hesitated at first, thinking, "Do I really need more social obligations?" But something inside nudged her to go. The first meeting was awkward. Eleanor felt out of practice. Conversations moved quickly, and everyone had opinions she hadn't considered. She worried she wouldn't contribute anything meaningful. But as the discussion unfolded, something remarkable happened. Listening, speaking, and debating activated parts of her brain that had been dormant. Her neurons were firing in new combinations. Connections she hadn't used in years were being strengthened, and her mind felt more alert than it had in months. Eleanor realized that social interaction wasn't just enjoyable, it was brain medicine. Every laugh, every shared story, every thoughtful question was stimulating her cognition in ways puzzles and solo reading couldn't match. Eleanor's experience is not unique. Neuroscience confirms that social connection is one of the most powerful ways to preserve and even enhance cognitive function. When we engage with others, our brains work harder. We must interpret expressions, track conversation, recall facts, and respond appropriately. These complex tasks light up multiple regions of the brain simultaneously, reinforcing memory, attention, and executive function. Isolation, on the other hand, can accelerate cognitive decline and even increase the risk of dementia. Over the following months, Eleanor immersed herself in social activities. She joined her book club regularly, volunteered at a local community center, and reconnected with old friends. Each interaction felt like a workout for her brain. She laughed more, remembered details with surprising clarity, and found that her conversations were sharper and more engaging. The social stimulation, combined with curiosity and learning, created a perfect environment for neuroplasticity. Eleanor's brain was thriving because she was pushing it in ways that were fun, meaningful, and relational. What Eleanor discovered is a vital principle. Staying mentally sharp is not just about what you do alone, it's about the people you connect with, the conversations you have, and the relationships you nurture. Every shared laugh, debate, and memory triggers growth, strengthens neural pathways, and reinforces mental agility. Social engagement is not optional, it's essential for brain health, especially after 70. By embracing connection, Eleanor reclaimed her cognitive vitality. She realized that mental sharpness is a collaborative effort, nourished by meaningful interactions, curiosity, and the willingness to engage deeply with others. Age is not a barrier. It's an opportunity to cultivate the relationships and conversations that keep the mind alive, alert, and resilient. Every dialogue, every connection, every laugh was not just social pleasure. It was training her brain for lasting mental clarity and strength. Harold had always considered himself a cautious man. At 78, he moved through life carefully, avoiding risks and new challenges, convinced that his best years of mental sharpness were behind him. His days were filled with routine, morning coffee, reading the paper, and light television. He comforted himself with the thought that he was doing okay, but deep down, he felt a creeping sense of mental stagnation. He would forget small details, struggle to recall names, and notice that his thinking wasn't as quick as it used to be. One evening, his daughter visited and challenged him. "Dad, stop waiting for things to happen. You can shape your brain just like you shape your life. Try something new today." Harold was hesitant, but that night he reflected on her words. For decades, he had allowed comfort to dictate his habits, and in doing so, he had unconsciously limited his brain's potential. The next morning, he decided to take a small but bold step. He enrolled in a local creative writing class, something he had always wanted to try but never dared. At first, he felt awkward and self-conscious. Words didn't flow easily, and his sentences felt clumsy. But as he persisted, something remarkable happened. The mental effort required to craft stories, choose words, and express ideas began to wake up his mind. Each challenge strengthened his neural pathways, forcing his brain to adapt, grow, and reconnect. Harold's story illustrates a fundamental truth. Stopping cognitive decline requires conscious action. The brain doesn't simply deteriorate with age, it responds to stimulation, novelty, and deliberate effort. When we replace passive habits, endless TV scrolling, or repeating the same routines, with challenging, meaningful activities, we signal our neurons to grow, form new connections, and maintain flexibility. Every choice to push beyond comfort, no matter how small, is a decision to sculpt the mind. As weeks passed, Harold discovered joy in the unexpected. His memory improved, his thinking became faster, and his conversations grew richer. Writing, once daunting, became exhilarating. His confidence soared as he realized that age was not a limit, only a mindset. By actively shaping his daily habits, Harold reclaimed a sense of mental freedom and vitality that he had assumed was gone forever. He learned that the most powerful antidote to cognitive decline was not medication, supplements, or luck. It was conscious, intentional engagement with life and the mind. This lesson is universal. Every individual at 70, 80, or beyond can choose to stop decline and start sculpting their brain. Comfort may feel safe, but it is stagnation in disguise. Growth, energy, and sharpness require effort, curiosity, and courage. Every new skill learned, every problem solved, and every habit consciously formed strengthens the brain's architecture, making it resilient, agile, and alive. Harold's journey reminds us that age is not a limitation. It is an opportunity to prove that the brain's capacity for renewal and brilliance endures throughout life. By taking charge, by choosing challenge over complacency, we not only preserve our cognitive function, but also rediscover the joy and freedom of a mind that remains fully alive, even at 70 and beyond.